Little girl gives a secret signal to the royal guard. He stops the entire parade in shock. The sun shone brightly over the city, casting a warm, golden glow on the streets lined with cheering people. Flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, and the sound of drums echoed through the air, mixing with the laughter of children and the chatter of excited citizens. Today was special. The royal parade was coming, and the whole city had gathered to see the king and queen pass through the streets. It was an event that happened only once a year, and everyone wanted a glimpse of the grand spectacle. Among the crowd, a small figure moved with quiet curiosity. Emily, a little girl of 8 years, had been waiting for this day for weeks. Her dark hair was tied neatly into 2 braids, and her bright eyes sparkled with excitement. Unlike other children who were pushing to get closer to the street, Emily stood a little apart, observing everything with careful attention. She was not just curious about the royal carriages or the guards in their shiny uniforms. Something deeper drew her to this parade, something only she seemed to understand. Emily's family lived near the city square, and for as long as she could remember, her grandfather had told her stories about secret codes and signals used long ago to protect important people. He had been a royal messenger when he was younger, carrying secret messages across cities and towns. Though those days were over, some of the old knowledge had been passed down to Emily. She had learned how subtle gestures, a tilt of the head, a movement of the hand, could communicate messages without anyone else noticing. Today, she had a reason to use that knowledge, though nobody in the crowd could know why. As the first band of guards came into view, Emily's heart began to race. Their polished boots clicked in perfect rhythm on the cobblestone streets, and the brass of their instruments gleamed in the sunlight. Each step they took was precise, disciplined, and commanding. Emily felt a strange mixture of awe and nervousness. She had seen soldiers before, of course, but seeing them in this grand parade, moving with such coordination, made her feel small and yet strangely important at the same time. Among the sea of guards, one figure stood out. Sergeant Thomas was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face lined with years of dedication and duty. His eyes were sharp, scanning the crowd for anything unusual, as he had been trained to do. He walked with a careful, deliberate pace, knowing that every step he took was part of a much larger, perfectly choreographed event. As he glanced at the onlookers, his gaze briefly landed on Emily. She was just a little girl, standing quietly and watching. Normally, he might have ignored her, as children were often a distraction. But there was something about her that caught his attention, something in the way she stood so still, so focused, so completely aware of what was happening around her. Emily knew that the moment was approaching. The parade would soon reach the central square, and that was where the king and queen would appear, waving to the citizens. The crowd around her pressed forward, trying to get a better view, but Emily stayed back, keeping herself slightly hidden. She didn't want to be noticed by strangers, only by the one person who needed to see her. She took a deep breath, recalling her grandfather's instructions. Her hand, small and delicate, moved just slightly in a gesture that was practiced and secret. It was a tiny flick of her fingers, almost like she was brushing a strand of hair away, but to anyone trained to recognize it, it carried a clear and urgent message. Sergeant Thomas noticed the movement almost immediately. At first, he thought he might be imagining it. A little girl giving a hand signal in the middle of such a crowded and noisy parade seemed impossible. But there was something in the way she moved, something precise and deliberate that made him pause. His training kicked in instantly. He had been part of the Royal Guard for over 10 years, and in that time he had learned to recognize signs of danger, no matter how small. Emily's gesture was one of them. The crowd continued to cheer as the first carriage came into view, its golden wheels gleaming and the royal crest shining in the sunlight. Trumpets blared and confetti rained down from above, sparkling like tiny stars as it floated through the air. People shouted and waved, reaching out to catch glimpses of the royals inside, but Emily barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on Thomas, hoping he had seen the signal and understood its meaning. She felt a mix of fear and excitement. Fear because the message she was sending was serious. Something important needed attention, and excitement because she knew she had the power to help, even as a small child. Thomas's heart beat faster, but he did not act hastily. He needed to confirm what he had seen without causing unnecessary panic. Slowly, he adjusted his stance, scanning the area more carefully. His trained eyes moved across the street, taking in every detail. The crowd, the carriages, the flags fluttering in the breeze, the banners hanging from buildings, all of it seemed normal, and yet he felt a tension in the air, an alert that something was out of place. Emily's small hand movement had triggered it. He could not ignore it. Emily's mind raced as she watched Thomas. She knew that the smallest hesitation could make a difference. She had learned to be patient, to wait for the right moment, and now was the moment. The streets were crowded, and any sudden action could draw attention, but she had been trained in subtlety. She shifted her weight slightly, giving another minor signal, a tiny adjustment of her wrist, almost invisible to anyone else. To Thomas, it was unmistakable. He felt a chill run down his spine. Something serious was happening, and a little girl had just alerted him. It was unusual, yes, but in his line of work, unusual could mean danger. He glanced around again, noticing that most of the crowd was oblivious. They were laughing, taking pictures, waving to the passing soldiers and carriages. No one else would notice the signs, which was exactly how it needed to be. Emily's gaze did not waver. She was calm, composed, and utterly focused on the task at hand. She had been prepared for this moment without fully understanding its weight. Her grandfather's stories had seemed like fairy tales when she was younger, but now they were real. She felt the responsibility on her small shoulders, yet she did not falter. As the parade continued, Thomas's mind raced. He had to act carefully. If he made a mistake, it could cause panic. But if he ignored the signal, the consequences could be much worse. He moved slightly closer to the edge of the street, keeping his posture formal but ready. He began to watch for anything unusual, anything that could indicate trouble. Every detail mattered. The way a stranger moved in the crowd, the way the horses were guided, the way the banners swayed. Emily's eyes scanned the street as well, ensuring that her signal had been received and understood. She felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. She was small, and most people would underestimate her, but at this moment, she knew she had done something important. The world around her continued in a blur of color and sound, but she remained focused, confident that Thomas would respond if necessary. For Thomas, it was a moment of clarity. The ordinary parade, the ordinary day, suddenly carried a hidden layer of tension. He had learned to trust his instincts over the years, and now those instincts were confirming what he had already suspected. This little girl was not ordinary. She was someone who could see what others could not, and she had just given him a message that could change the course of the day. As the first carriage rolled by, Thomas kept his eyes on Emily, watching for any further signals. She remained still, almost statuesque, her small hand poised delicately, ready to communicate at the exact right moment. The crowd cheered loudly as the king and queen waved from inside the carriage, but Emily barely noticed. Her focus was elsewhere, and Thomas knew that the next few moments could be crucial. Emily's bravery and calmness in the middle of such a crowded, noisy, and dazzling parade showed a maturity far beyond her years. She was small, yes, but her courage and intelligence were enormous. She knew the importance of timing, of patience, and of subtlety. She knew that the entire city could be unaware of the potential danger, but that did not matter. What mattered was that she had a role to play, and she would not fail. Thomas's mind replayed the tiny movements, the subtle gestures, over and over. Each one was deliberate, precise, and meaningful. In that instant, he realized that he had been trained for years to protect the royals, but he had never encountered someone like Emily, a child who could communicate such an urgent message with nothing more than a flick of a hand. He admired her courage silently, knowing that the task ahead would require careful action and attention. And so, the parade continued, the music playing, the crowds cheering, and Emily standing quietly, a small but powerful figure in the midst of it all. The sun shone down, casting shadows that danced along the cobblestones, but for Emily and Thomas, the world had narrowed to a single point of understanding. A silent message that could not be ignored, and the anticipation of what might come next. Emily's tiny hand gestures had not gone unnoticed. Sergeant Thomas, standing tall among the marching guards, could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The parade had seemed ordinary moments ago, a celebration filled with music, laughter, and color, yet now a subtle tension hummed beneath the surface. Something was wrong. Emily's gestures were not playful or careless, they carried meaning. And Thomas, trained to recognize signs of danger, knew better than to ignore them. The streets were packed. Children perched on their parents' shoulders, eager to catch a glimpse of the royal family, while tourists clutched cameras, snapping pictures of the glittering uniforms, horse-drawn carriages, and golden banners fluttering in the sunlight. Emily, however, barely noticed the crowd. Her eyes were fixed on Thomas, her gaze steady, her small body tense with the knowledge that she had to remain calm. One wrong move and her message might be missed. One wrong word or gesture and the danger could go unnoticed. Thomas continued scanning the street. He noticed details that others might overlook. A man standing unusually close to the barricades, glancing around nervously. A bundle on the edge of the sidewalk, partially hidden behind a sign. And a slight shift in the crowd's energy, a ripple of unease that most people would never feel. Each detail, though subtle, reinforced the warning that Emily's gestures had delivered. He knew he had to act carefully. Panicking or acting too quickly could cause chaos in the densely packed streets. Emily's mind worked quickly, remembering the lessons her grandfather had taught her. Observe first, act second, he had said many times, and always use subtlety when danger approaches. She could feel her heartbeat in her chest, rapid and insistent, but her hands remained steady. Another tiny flick of her fingers, almost invisible to the crowd, was enough to tell Thomas that the threat was real and immediate. Thomas took a deep breath, steadying himself. He was a man of action, trained to respond instantly, but the presence of a child delivering a warning added an unusual complexity. He needed to assess the situation carefully. Slowly, he moved along the parade line, eyes scanning for the source of the danger. His every movement was precise, calculated not to alarm the crowd or the royal family, yet ready to act at a moment's notice. Emily watched him, silent and focused. She knew that the clock was ticking. The parade would not stop on its own, and if the potential threat wasn't addressed quickly, there could be serious consequences. Yet she also knew that Thomas was capable. He had the training, the experience, and now the crucial information she had provided through her secret gestures. She had faith in him, even though he was a stranger. The crowd cheered loudly as the next carriage approached. It carried the young prince and princess, waving enthusiastically to the citizens who had gathered to see them. Confetti swirled in the air, landing on shoulders, hair, and hats. Horses neighed and stamped their feet, the clatter of their hooves blending with the music of trumpets and drums. Most of the onlookers were completely unaware that anything was amiss. Everything seemed normal, joyous, and festive. But Thomas and Emily both knew that appearances could be deceiving. As the carriage passed, Thomas spotted something unusual. A man dressed in ordinary clothes was moving against the crowd, trying to remain unnoticed. He carried a large bundle under one arm, concealing it as best he could. Something about his movements was deliberate, careful, yet unnatural in the midst of the celebration. Thomas's instincts screamed that this was the individual Emily had warned him about. He had to act, but he needed to do so in a way that kept the royal family safe and the crowd calm. Emily's eyes widened slightly. She had seen the same man earlier, but in the crowd he had seemed insignificant, just another spectator. Now, as he moved closer to the parade route, she realized that Thomas's recognition confirmed her fears. The danger was real, and it was approaching quickly. She clenched her fists for a moment, then relaxed them, preparing to give the next signal if needed. She felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever, but she also felt a sense of pride. Even though she was small, she had the power to protect people she had never met. Thomas shifted his stance, subtly signaling to nearby guards without drawing attention. They adjusted their positions, moving in a coordinated pattern that allowed them to monitor the man while maintaining the appearance of normal parade duties. The crowd continued cheering, oblivious to the tension just steps away from them. Emily watched closely, silently urging Thomas to stay focused and act wisely. Every second mattered. The man with the bundle stopped for a moment, glancing around nervously. He seemed to be looking for something or someone, though it was unclear what his intentions were. Thomas observed his movements carefully, noting the way he hesitated and the way his eyes darted quickly from side to side. Emily's earlier signals had been clear, but now the real test of their plan began. Thomas needed confirmation before making a decisive move. Emily knew she could help. She took a slow, deep breath and made another subtle gesture, a small tilt of her head combined with a barely noticeable raise of her hand. It was a signal Thomas had been trained to recognize from the old codes Emily had learned. It meant danger is imminent. Take action now. He saw it immediately. Thomas's eyes locked on the man with the bundle. He could feel his pulse quicken, but his face remained calm, his expression neutral. With a single, almost imperceptible movement, he adjusted his position to block the man's path if necessary. His training allowed him to anticipate the man's next move. He had to prevent any harm from coming to the royal family, the parade participants, or the spectators. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, but he felt the reassurance of Emily's silent guidance. The man took a hesitant step forward, and the tension in the air thickened. Emily's small hands were ready, her posture alert. She remained calm, though her mind raced with calculations. Every eye in the crowd was fixed on the parade, yet only she and Thomas could see the unfolding danger. Time seemed to stretch, each second heavy with potential consequences. Then, almost imperceptibly, the man shifted his bundle, revealing a glimpse of something that caused Thomas to make a split-second decision. He moved forward with deliberate speed, blocking the man's path and stepping in between him and the approaching carriage. The crowd noticed a change in the guard's behavior, though they had no idea why. Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, curiosity replacing pure celebration. Emily's eyes followed the movements closely. She knew that the man could try to flee, but Thomas was ready. His training, combined with her signals, created an invisible connection that allowed them to anticipate the next moments. She could see the relief in his eyes as he realized that he had positioned himself correctly to prevent any danger from escalating. The man froze, realizing that he could not advance without being noticed or stopped. Thomas maintained his calm, authoritative presence, giving no sign of panic. The crowd continued to cheer, some noticing the unusual tension among the guards but thinking it was part of the performance. Emily, standing quietly on the sidelines, felt a sense of accomplishment. Her gestures had worked. The danger had been identified and contained, though the situation was not yet completely resolved. Thomas called quietly to a nearby guard, instructing him to follow a specific path to intercept the man without alarming the spectators. Every movement was precise, calculated, and almost invisible to the public. Emily watched, heart pounding, as her silent message guided the actions of trained professionals. She realized that even small gestures, when used wisely, could have a powerful impact. The man made one last attempt to move, but Thomas was ready. With careful precision, the guard team surrounded him, guiding him away from the parade route. The tension dissipated slowly, though the crowd remained unaware of the close call. Emily exhaled quietly, her small shoulders relaxing for the first time in minutes. The danger had been averted, thanks to her signal and Thomas's quick thinking. Thomas turned to look at Emily, eyes meeting hers across the crowd. In that brief moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. She had helped prevent a potential disaster, and he had recognized her courage and intelligence. Though the crowd remained oblivious, and the parade continued as if nothing had happened, a silent bond had formed between the little girl and the seasoned guard. Emily smiled faintly, proud of what she had accomplished, but aware that her work was not yet done. She would need to remain vigilant, just in case. The parade, though seemingly normal, still carried the weight of unpredictability, and her grandfather's lessons had taught her that true responsibility never ends. She adjusted her posture, ready to give the next signal if necessary, knowing that even the smallest actions could make a difference in moments of danger. As the next carriage approached, carrying dignitaries and important officials, Thomas kept his eyes on the surroundings, subtly shifting positions and maintaining readiness. Emily remained quiet, calm, and observant. Together, though from different worlds, one small and unassuming, the other trained and disciplined, they created a partnership built on trust, quick thinking, and the understanding that courage can come from the most unexpected places. The parade marched on, the music playing, horses trotting, and citizens cheering. Yet beneath the festive surface, a silent alert continued, a reminder that vigilance and awareness can be the difference between safety and chaos. Emily, though small and young, had proven that even the tiniest gestures could carry great power. Thomas, experienced and vigilant, had shown that careful observation and quick action could protect many lives. Together, their unspoken collaboration ensured that the day would continue in celebration, untainted by harm. The parade continued down the wide, sunlit streets, the crowd cheering and waving as the royal carriages passed by. Trumpets blared, drums rolled, and the air was filled with the scent of flowers and freshly baked bread from nearby stalls. Most of the citizens were lost in the excitement, pointing and waving at the royals, oblivious to the quiet tension unfolding just beyond their notice. Emily remained still, her small frame barely visible amid the crowd. Her eyes, wide with focus, never left Sergeant Thomas, who moved with careful attention along the parade route. Thomas felt the weight of responsibility more heavily than ever. The signals Emily had sent were clear. Danger was nearby, and it needed to be addressed immediately. Yet he had to act with precision. A sudden or careless move could alarm the crowd, spook the horses, or endanger the royal family. He had been trained for high-pressure situations, but the unusual circumstance of receiving a warning from a small child added an extra layer of complexity. Still, he trusted her instincts. Emily had not sent false signals before, and he had no reason to doubt the importance of her gestures. He scanned the crowd again, noting every detail. A man in a dark jacket lingered near the edge of the street, hands fidgeting with a bundle he carried. He was attempting to blend in, but his movements were too deliberate, too purposeful. Thomas recognized the danger immediately. He subtly signaled two nearby guards, shifting them closer without causing alarm. Their coordinated movements formed a protective barrier around the approaching carriage, while keeping the public unaware of any threat. Emily's small hands twitched slightly, almost imperceptibly, signaling to Thomas that the man was indeed the source of danger. Her heart raced, but her face remained calm. She had learned to control her emotions, knowing that fear could be a liability. Each subtle gesture she made was like a carefully chosen word in a secret language, one that Thomas could read perfectly. He moved with deliberate slowness, closing the distance to the man while maintaining a posture that was calm and authoritative. The man noticed Thomas approaching and hesitated. He glanced around nervously, unsure if anyone else had seen him. Emily's sharp eyes caught his nervous glances immediately. She felt a surge of urgency. This was the moment where quick action could prevent a catastrophe. Thomas, keeping his eyes locked on the man, adjusted his stance to block any path forward. The crowd cheered loudly, but Thomas's focus never wavered. He had to protect the royal family, the parade participants, and the spectators, all at once. Emily's mind raced as she watched the unfolding scene. She remembered her grandfather's stories of secret signals and instant action. "One gesture can change everything," he had said. Now, standing amid cheering citizens, she realized the truth of those words. Her gestures were guiding a seasoned guard to prevent danger. She felt proud, but also aware that any misstep could have serious consequences. She remained calm, poised, and ready to give the next signal if necessary. Thomas slowly closed the distance between himself and the man. The streets, though crowded, allowed him to move with measured precision. Every step was calculated, ensuring he could react instantly if the man tried to make a sudden move. Emily's gestures had guided him to this point, but now it was up to his training to manage the situation. He stayed alert, ready to act in a fraction of a second. The man shifted his weight nervously, looking around to see if anyone had noticed him. He clutched the bundle closer, attempting to conceal it. Thomas moved another step forward, his presence now looming over the man, though still controlled and non-threatening to the crowd. He spoke softly to the other guards, coordinating their movements to surround the man without drawing attention. The precision of their teamwork was seamless, a silent choreography of vigilance and control. Emily's hands twitched slightly again, signaling Thomas that the man might try to escape. Her small gestures carried enormous weight, guiding the actions of experienced professionals. Thomas noticed immediately and subtly adjusted the positions of the guards. The man now found himself subtly boxed in, unable to advance without being noticed. Emily's heart beat faster, yet her expression remained calm. She had trained herself for moments like this, where focus and patience could make all the difference. The crowd continued to cheer, waving and laughing, unaware of the tense situation unfolding near the parade route. Children pointed at the brightly decorated horses and the sparkling carriages. Parents clutched their cameras to capture every moment, and vendors continued selling flowers and snacks to excited citizens. Everything seemed joyous and festive, yet beneath the surface, Emily and Thomas were navigating a critical moment of danger. The man took a hesitant step forward, but Thomas anticipated it. With precise timing, he adjusted his stance, blocking the man's path without alarming the spectators. The guards around him subtly tightened their formation, guiding the man toward a safer area where he could be detained without causing panic. Every action was executed with calm precision, maintaining the illusion of normalcy while effectively neutralizing the threat. Emily's eyes widened slightly, relieved to see that Thomas was responding perfectly to her signals. She remained alert, knowing that her gestures had started a chain of events that could prevent disaster. Her grandfather's lessons had prepared her for this, but seeing them in action was thrilling and nerve-wracking all at once. She stayed still, hands poised, ready to signal again if the man made another move. The man realized he was trapped. His attempts to move subtly were now impossible. Thomas, calm and authoritative, closed in, guiding the man toward a nearby guard post where he could be detained safely. The tension in the air was almost tangible, yet the crowd remained blissfully unaware. Emily allowed herself a small breath of relief, but her focus never wavered. She knew that until the situation was fully resolved, vigilance was essential. As the carriage carrying the prince and princess passed by, Emily noticed the expressions of delight on their faces. They waved to the crowd, completely unaware of the danger that had been averted just steps away. Thomas kept his focus on the man, ensuring that no harm could reach anyone. Emily's gestures had guided him to the right place at the right time, allowing his training to take over and neutralize the threat efficiently. The man, realizing his attempts to escape were futile, finally stopped struggling. Thomas calmly instructed the guards to secure him, ensuring that no harm would come to the public or the parade participants. Emily watched, her heart still racing, as the situation was brought under control. The small hand signals she had sent had led to a successful outcome, and she felt a quiet sense of pride. Thomas finally allowed himself a brief glance at Emily. Their eyes met across the crowd, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. She had helped prevent a potential disaster, and he had recognized her courage and intelligence. Though the parade continued as if nothing had happened, the bond between them had been firmly established. Emily had proven that even a small child could have a powerful impact when guided by knowledge and courage. The crowd continued to cheer, the horses trotted, the trumpets blared, and the royal family waved to their citizens. Yet beneath the festivities, a quiet sense of triumph lingered for Emily and Thomas. The danger had been contained, thanks to their collaboration, and the parade could continue safely. Emily allowed herself a small smile, proud of the role she had played. Thomas, experienced and disciplined, acknowledged silently that he had learned something extraordinary from a child that day. Emily's bravery and intelligence had guided him through a situation that could have been disastrous. Together they had prevented harm without causing alarm, a testament to courage, trust, and quick thinking. Emily's eyes scanned the crowd one last time, ensuring that everyone was safe. She knew her work might not be finished, that vigilance was a continuous responsibility, but she also felt a sense of accomplishment. Her small gestures had carried enormous weight, guiding a trained professional to protect countless lives. The experience left her feeling empowered and proud, a little hero hidden among the cheering crowd. Thomas remained vigilant, but he allowed himself a subtle nod of respect toward Emily. She had proven that courage and intelligence are not measured by size or age, but by the willingness to act with care and purpose. The parade marched on, music and laughter filling the streets, and the citizens remained unaware of the silent heroism that had just saved the day. As the royal carriages continued down the route, Emily stood quietly, watching and learning. She had been part of something extraordinary, a moment that combined danger, courage, and quick thinking. Her grandfather's lessons had come alive, and she realized that even in the midst of celebration, vigilance and intelligence could make a tremendous difference. The man, now in the custody of the guards, offered no further threat. Thomas and Emily shared a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement of success. The parade continued, joyous and uninterrupted, yet for Emily and Thomas, the memory of the day would remain vivid, a reminder of courage, vigilance, and the extraordinary power of even the smallest actions in moments of great importance. Emily felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had acted with courage and intelligence, using her knowledge to guide someone far more experienced and trained. Thomas, in turn, had responded with skill and calm, showing that experience and instinct, when combined with guidance and trust, could prevent danger effectively. Together, they had achieved something remarkable, quietly and without fanfare, in the middle of one of the city's grandest celebrations. The sun continued to shine, casting long shadows along the streets as the parade moved further along the route. Emily watched with pride, knowing that her small hand gestures had helped protect the royal family, the parade participants, and the cheering citizens. Thomas kept his eyes on the surroundings, still alert, knowing that vigilance was always necessary. And though the crowd remained unaware of the danger that had just been averted, Emily and Thomas knew the truth. Courage, intelligence, and quick thinking had saved the day. The parade continued down the wide streets, though now the rhythm felt slightly different. Even though the crowd remained unaware of the close call earlier, the air carried a quiet sense of relief, invisible to everyone except those who had been involved in the unfolding events. Emily stood quietly, her small hands folded in front of her, eyes scanning the crowd and the parade. She felt a mixture of pride and anticipation, knowing that what had just happened was extraordinary, though unseen by most people. Sergeant Thomas remained alert, walking carefully along the edge of the parade route. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, ensuring that the man who had been intercepted was no longer a threat. Emily's guidance had been precise, and her instincts had led him to prevent what could have been a serious incident. He felt respect and admiration for the little girl who had communicated danger so calmly and cleverly. Though she was small, she had played a key role in protecting everyone in the parade. As the royal carriages approached the central square, the crowd's excitement grew louder. People shouted and waved, trying to catch a glimpse of the king and queen as they prepared to wave from the grandstand. Children clutched their parents' hands, pointing to the sparkling horses, the shiny uniforms, and the vibrant banners that lined the streets. The air was filled with music and celebration, yet behind the scenes, Emily and Thomas were quietly observing, ensuring that the remainder of the parade would continue safely. Emily felt a small thrill as she realized how much responsibility she had carried that day. She had remained calm, focused, and precise, even though her heart had raced with nervous energy. Her grandfather's lessons had guided her. The importance of careful observation, the power of subtle gestures, and the ability to act decisively in moments of danger. Now, watching Thomas coordinate with his team to keep the crowd safe, she felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond excitement. It was a deep, quiet pride. Thomas, aware of Emily's presence, occasionally glanced toward her. He had never encountered a situation like this before. A child, so young, quietly giving guidance that could prevent harm. He had spent years learning to read people, to anticipate threats, and to act with precision, but Emily had brought a new kind of skill to the situation. Her calm demeanor and intelligence had made a difference, and he knew it. There was something remarkable about her courage, a bravery that did not need recognition to have value. As the parade entered the central square, the king and queen appeared atop the grandstand. Their hands waved gracefully to the crowd, smiles warm and inviting. Citizens cheered, flowers were tossed, and the atmosphere seemed brighter than ever. Emily allowed herself a small smile, seeing that the danger had been successfully avoided. The royal family had no idea that a small girl and a vigilant guard had worked together to ensure their safety. It was a secret accomplishment, hidden from everyone else, yet deeply meaningful to those involved. The man who had been intercepted earlier was now safely in custody, escorted away by other guards. He had attempted to approach the parade, but had been stopped before any harm could occur. Thomas watched as his colleagues led the man away, satisfied that the immediate danger had passed. Emily observed the scene, noting how seamlessly Thomas and his team had managed the situation. Her gestures had made the difference, but the guards' skill and experience had been equally crucial. Together, they had prevented what could have been a serious incident. Thomas approached Emily quietly, kneeling to bring his face closer to hers so he could speak without being overheard by the crowd. "You did very well," he said, his voice low and sincere. Emily blinked, surprised to hear praise from someone so experienced. I just tried to help," she replied softly, her voice steady but filled with quiet pride. Thomas nodded, impressed by her calmness. "You helped more than you know. Today your quick thinking and courage kept a lot of people safe." Emily's small chest swelled with pride. Though she had felt nervous moments before, she now realized the importance of her actions. She had contributed to something far bigger than herself, showing bravery, intelligence, and awareness that far exceeded her age. Thomas smiled at her quietly, knowing that her actions had saved lives without drawing attention to the danger. It was an unspoken victory, one that only the two of them truly understood. As the parade reached the end of the main street, the music swelled, and the crowd erupted into applause. The royal family waved again from their carriages, smiling at the cheering citizens. Emily watched the excitement around her, appreciating the joy of the moment while remembering the events that had taken place. She realized that courage often comes in quiet forms, through subtle gestures, careful observation, and thoughtful action. Her grandfather's lessons had proven true, and she had experienced their value firsthand. Thomas motioned for a few guards to clear a small area near Emily so that she could step out from the crowded street. He wanted her to see the royal family more clearly, a reward of sorts for her bravery. Emily's eyes widened as the carriages passed closer, the royals smiling and waving to the crowd. For a brief moment, she felt a connection to something magical, as if her small actions had contributed to the happiness of everyone in the city. After the parade concluded, Thomas guided Emily to a quiet spot away from the crowd. He knelt once more, looking at her with admiration. "Do you understand what you did today?" he asked. Emily nodded slowly, her bright eyes focused on him. "I think I helped," she said softly. "Yes," Thomas replied, "and you did it brilliantly. Most people wouldn't notice what you did, but I saw everything. You were brave, careful, and smart. You made a real difference." Emily felt a warm glow of pride. She had not sought recognition, but hearing those words from Thomas made her realize the importance of courage and responsibility. She understood that sometimes the most significant contributions are quiet, unseen, and yet powerful enough to change the outcome of events. Today, she had played such a role, guiding a trained professional through a critical moment and helping protect the people around her. Word of the day's events began to spread quietly among the guards and officials. Thomas shared Emily's courage with a few senior officers, explaining how her quick thinking and subtle gestures had helped avert danger. Though the citizens remained unaware of the incident, those who were responsible for the safety of the parade recognized the importance of Emily's actions. In private, she became something of a hero among the royal security team, a symbol of intelligence, bravery, and calm under pressure. Emily's parents, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally found her. Relief washed over their faces as they hugged her tightly. They had been unaware of the danger that had arisen, but they sensed her pride and excitement. "We are so proud of you," her mother said softly, holding Emily close. "You were so brave," Emily smiled, feeling the warmth of her family's pride. Though she had acted quietly and subtly, her family now knew the significance of her courage. Thomas watched the reunion from a short distance, his expression calm but full of admiration. He had seen many brave acts in his career, but few were as remarkable as the quiet intelligence of a child who could understand danger, communicate effectively, and act without fear. Emily had not only saved lives, but also demonstrated qualities that would serve her well throughout her life: courage, observation, and the wisdom to act thoughtfully in critical moments. The parade ended successfully, the city returning to its usual rhythm, filled with the sounds of celebration, laughter, and music. Emily walked alongside her parents, feeling a mixture of joy and quiet pride. She knew that today had been extraordinary, even if the world around her had remained mostly unaware. She had contributed to something far greater than herself, learning firsthand that even the smallest actions could have a profound impact. Thomas walked behind them for a moment, ensuring that the route remained safe. He felt a deep sense of respect for Emily, understanding that bravery and intelligence are not always measured by size, age, or experience. Sometimes they appear in the quietest, most unexpected forms. Today, a little girl had taught him a powerful lesson, that courage and awareness can make a difference, no matter how small or young the person displaying them may be. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows along the streets, Emily looked back at the parade route. She felt a mixture of satisfaction, excitement, and quiet reflection. Today had been an adventure, a challenge, and a triumph all at once. She had played a role in protecting the city, guiding a trained professional, and ensuring the safety of the royal family. And though the crowd had cheered for the festivities, they would never know that a small girl's courage had made all the difference. Thomas approached her one last time, kneeling to meet her gaze. "Remember this moment," he said softly. "You did something extraordinary today. One day you'll realize how much courage and intelligence can change the world." "Keep trusting yourself," Emily nodded, feeling a quiet strength within her. She had learned a lesson that went beyond the parade, beyond the danger, and beyond her age. That even the smallest person can make a tremendous difference when they act with courage, awareness, and heart. Emily walked home with her parents as the city settled into the calm of evening. The streets were still filled with lingering cheer, but for her, the memory of the day would remain vivid. She had faced danger, communicated a critical warning, and helped protect countless lives. She had discovered her own strength, and though she remained small in size, she had proven that her courage and intelligence were larger than anyone could imagine. The story of Emily's bravery quietly spread among the royal guards and officials, a tale of cleverness, courage, and quick thinking. Though the public remained unaware, the lessons of the day would stay with everyone involved. Emily had shown that even in a world filled with grand events and powerful people, the actions of a single child could be enough to change the course of events. Her gestures had prevented disaster, and her courage had inspired those who witnessed it. And so, as the sun disappeared behind the city's rooftops and the streets slowly emptied, Emily returned home with a sense of pride, purpose, and quiet triumph. She had acted bravely, wisely, and thoughtfully. She had worked alongside an experienced guard to ensure safety, demonstrating that courage, intelligence, and careful action can make all the difference, even in the midst of a bustling parade, in front of cheering citizens, and under the gaze of royalty.